You do not have to wait another second to become who you desire to be. The idea that your outer circumstances must first shift before you can embody wealth is a grand illusion. All transformation begins within. The only requirement for wealth is consciousness. If you wish to experience the millionaire life, then you must assume the millionaire state of being right now, this very moment. You do not change the world by effort. You change the world by accepting a new self. When you close your eyes and hear the word millionaire, what do you see? Who are you in that image? What do you feel? Are you calm, confident, composed? Is there a sense of freedom that dances in your heart? Perhaps it is a knowing, a deep inner certainty that all is well and all is yours. That image, that feeling, that version of you is not separate from you. It is you. The fact that you can feel it, imagine it, see it, is evidence that it already exists in your consciousness. And if it exists in consciousness, it can be made manifest. The mistake people make is thinking they need to earn their way into that version of themselves, that they must struggle, strive, hustle endlessly, and only after years of sweat and sacrifice they will finally deserve to be wealthy. But the truth is, consciousness is the only reality. The outer world mirrors your inner assumptions. You are not becoming a millionaire. You are awakening to the millionaire within. The seed of wealth is already planted within you. The moment you desire wealth, it is proof that the reality exists. You could not want something unless it was already yours in the unseen. The desire is the divine whisper, calling you home to your true self. You are not chasing wealth. You are remembering it. You are stepping into the role that has always belonged to you, if only you would claim it. So what does it mean to act as the millionaire version of you now? It is not about pretending or playing games. It is not about buying things you cannot afford or posting false images on a screen. It is about identifying so deeply with the feeling of already being wealthy that your every thought, word, and action flows naturally from that place. You do not try to convince anyone. You do not need the world to confirm it. You know it within yourself, and that knowing reshapes everything. You wake up in the morning, and you no longer ask, how can I get more? Instead you say, what would the wealthy version of me do today? You do not rush. You move with purpose. You carry yourself with elegance and presence. You speak with clarity and calm. You do not react to appearances. You respond from truth. Even if the bank account says otherwise, even if the job says otherwise, even if the people around you cannot see it, you hold to the inner conviction that you are already wealthy, because your imagination has declared it. Imagination is the workshop of creation. When you imagine yourself as a millionaire, you are not daydreaming. You are selecting a new state of consciousness. And once you select it and remain faithful to it, the world must conform. Not because you forced it to, but because you have aligned with a new version of reality. Think of the radio. You do not create the station. You simply tune the dial to a new frequency, and instantly the music changes. Your life is the same. When you tune your inner state to wealth, the outer world reflects that song. But if you keep listening to the static of fear, doubt, and lack, then you remain in that experience. The power is in your awareness. The shift is internal. Begin to walk into rooms like you belong there, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. You are no longer trying to prove your worth. You are no longer trying to earn validation. You know who you are, and that knowing radiates from you. People feel it. Opportunities are drawn to it. Doors open for it. You become a magnet for prosperity, not because you are chasing, but because you are aligned. When you act from this state, you do not act to get. You act from already having. You make decisions not out of fear of losing, but from the joy of expressing abundance. You are generous, not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because generosity is your nature. You are kind, not because you want something back, but because love flows freely from a heart that knows it is whole. What would the millionaire version of you do with time? Would they rush through the day, frantic and scattered? Or would they savor moments, knowing that time is not a burden, but a blessing? Would they complain about the past, or would they build from the present? Would they doubt their worth, or would they recognize that their value was never in question? You already have everything you need to begin. Wealth is not in the things, it is in the awareness. It is in the way you breathe, the way you hold yourself, the way you choose to see the world. Every moment is a chance to step into the role. Every moment is a rehearsal for the real you. And the more you live it, the more it becomes your default state, until one day you forget you ever doubted. Your identity is the foundation of all creation. As long as you see yourself as someone who is trying to become rich, you will always be chasing. But the moment you decide, I am wealthy now, and you feel the truth of it, you begin to rewrite your reality. And reality must obey. It cannot resist the one who is certain. There is nothing more powerful than a human being who has assumed the end, who sees the dream not as something far away, but as something already done. That person does not flinch when life wobbles. That person does not beg or plead or panic. That person walks in the assurance of their vision. They smile before the miracle. They give thanks before the manifestation. They live from the inside out. You must give up the need to be convinced by appearances. The world of senses is slow and shadow-like. It shows you what you have already believed. If you keep reacting to it, you remain trapped. But if you dare to believe something new, and hold to that belief with unwavering trust, then the shadows must take new form. That is the law. That is the way. Do not ask how. The how is never your job. The how belongs to the higher intelligence that shapes all things. Your job is to remain loyal to the vision, to walk as if, to speak as if, to live as if. If you knew beyond a doubt that your wealth was guaranteed, how would you feel? How would you carry yourself? That is how you must be now. That is the secret. You must begin to imagine scenes that imply your wealth is real. Perhaps you see yourself opening a letter and smiling because it confirms another six-figure deposit. Perhaps you see yourself giving with joy to others. Perhaps you hear someone congratulate you. Whatever the scene, it must feel natural. It must feel done, and you must return to it often. Not to make it happen, but because you love the feeling of it. And in loving the feeling, you impress it upon your subconscious. And once impressed, it must express. There is no one stopping you, but your old self. The self that thinks it's not ready. The self that fears failure. The self that clings to stories of the past. But that self is a ghost. It has no power unless you feed it. You can release it. You can drop the mask. You can rise. And the moment you do, all things begin to shift. The outer world may delay, but the inner world never lies. Once you feel it within, you have planted the seed. Keep watering it with faith. Keep nurturing it with imagination. Keep feeding it with speech that affirms your abundance. Speak to yourself as the one who already has. I am wealthy now. I am guided now. I am supported now. Let these words become your rhythm. Let them be the background music of your life. Even when no one sees it, you must. Even when the evidence is thin, your conviction must be thick. Because it is your conviction that creates the evidence. It is your belief that reshapes the facts. The world bends to the inner decree. Do not underestimate the power of a single decision. When you decide to act as the millionaire version of you, you are not faking. You are aligning. You are choosing to trust the unseen more than the seen. You are stepping into divine authority. You are saying, let it be, and it will be. You do not need to know every step. The road reveals itself to those who walk. As you walk in faith, new ideas come. New people appear. Synchronicities unfold. But they only come to the one who has already decided. The undecided wait. The decided create. So begin now. Walk as if your dream is real. Speak as if your success is guaranteed. Think as if you are already there. And soon the world will rise to meet you. Because it was never about chasing a distant future. It was always about awakening to who you already are. A millionaire in consciousness. A being of wealth. A creator of realities. Hold fast to the vision. Let nothing shake your knowing. Let no voice talk you out of your dream. Remain true to the inner state, and all things will be added unto you. It cannot fail. For what you assume to be true becomes your experience, not by effort, not by struggle, but by the power of awareness. You are not becoming rich. You are revealing the richness within. You are not waiting for wealth. You are walking in it now, and as you persist, it must externalize. For the world is but your mirror, and it faithfully reflects the image you hold within. You must remember, the only requirement for wealth to manifest outwardly is for you to accept it inwardly without question. When you truly claim the state of being wealthy, when you no longer question if it's yours, when you no longer look to others for confirmation, you become unstoppable, not because of force or control, but because you've entered a flow with life itself, and in that flow everything aligns, everything cooperates, everything moves in harmony with your assumption. The conversations you have with yourself begin to change. You are no longer repeating the same tired story of someday, or if only. You are no longer analyzing why it hasn't happened yet. That version of you dies in the silence of your new awareness. Instead, you speak to yourself from the state of already having. You whisper in your own ear, "Isn't it wonderful? Everything I touch turns to gold. Wealth follows me. Abundance surrounds me. I am always supported." You repeat it until it becomes a rhythm in your cells, a truth too deep to argue with. You begin to notice the small signs that were always there but previously ignored. The slight shifts in your surroundings, the new energy in your conversations, the ideas that seem to drop in at just the right time. These are not coincidences. These are reflections of your new self. They were waiting all along for you to step into the identity where they belong, for the life you desire already exists. It is simply mirrored by the version of you that corresponds to it. You don't try to earn this life through effort. You become it through awareness. The version of you who is already a millionaire does not doubt, fear, or hustle blindly. That version of you is calm, strategic, and assured. That version acts from a place of clarity. That version walks into a room and does not ask for permission to belong. They know they are the answer, the value, the presence. And when you act from that place, others begin to see it too. Not because you asked them to, not because you tried to impress them, but because truth is felt and conviction cannot be ignored. Even in moments of contrast, when things seem off, when challenges arise, the millionaire version of you does not collapse. They do not panic. They return to their inner kingdom. They remind themselves that appearances are fleeting, but awareness is eternal, that their true wealth lies in their power to choose how they feel, how they respond, how they hold the vision even in the midst of what seems like contradiction. Because they know the contradiction is temporary. They know the outer world is catching up. You must walk like the version of you that knows where they are going. You must dress like the version who respects themselves. You must think, speak, and breathe like the one who already has the empire. Not because you're performing, but because you are practicing presence. You are rehearsing the role until it becomes real. And the more real it feels, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, it's not a performance. It's who you are. It's how you live. It's what the world now reflects back without resistance. People will ask you what you did differently. They'll want the strategies, the steps, the secrets. But you'll know it wasn't the steps that made the difference. It was the identity behind them. It was the shift in self-perception. The moment you stopped acting like someone trying to become, and instead acted as someone who is, that was the moment everything changed. That was the moment the universe bowed in response. Let that shift begin today. Let it begin in the way you speak to yourself when no one is around. Let it begin in the way you hold your head, the way you sit, the way you breathe. Let it begin in the way you bless your surroundings, even if they are modest, because you see them as the fertile ground for wealth. The outer world may not have changed yet, but your spirit has, and that spirit will shape worlds. You do not beg for change. You embody it. You do not wish for more. You assume it is already yours. You move through life like someone who has found the secret. And the secret is this: you are already that which you seek to become. You simply need to claim it, feel it, and live from it. Let the world catch up, and it will. You'll notice that when you stop chasing and start embodying, the world begins to chase you. The clients you once prayed for appear effortlessly. The money you once stressed over arrives with ease. The opportunities you once thought were reserved for the lucky begin to find their way to your door. And it isn't magic, it is law. It is the natural outcome of alignment. When the inner frequency changes, the outer form must follow. You are not bound by your past. You are not trapped by what has been. You are free in this moment to decide again. And your decision to act now as the millionaire version of yourself is the key that unlocks the floodgates. There's a dignity that arises within you when you make this shift. You no longer lower yourself to complain. You no longer lower yourself to complain. You no longer entertain the drama of limitation. You no longer gossip, judge, or argue for your restrictions. Why? Because that is not what the millionaire version of you does. That version has no interest in what doesn't serve the dream. That version only speaks in terms of possibility, vision, and gratitude. So you release the need to be right, to be validated, to be pitied. You rise beyond that, because you found something greater. A life of expansion, contribution, freedom. The world cannot ignore someone who has assumed their wealth in consciousness. They may not understand you at first. They may even resist the change, but that's irrelevant. You do not need their agreement. You need only your own conviction. It is your inner alignment that moves the pieces. When you are unwavering in your belief, the world organizes around it. And so your thoughts become sacred. Your words become intentional. Your habits become elevated, not out of obligation, but out of alignment. You begin to feel joy in discipline. You begin to honor time as a tool, not a tyrant. You begin to treat money not as a scarce resource, but as a faithful servant of your vision. You are not afraid to invest, to delegate, to rest, because you know there is always more where that came from. That is the mindset of a millionaire. That is the energy that multiplies. You begin to see the world differently. The same streets look brighter. The same people seem more interesting. The same routines feel more powerful. Because you are different. You're no longer the person hoping for a breakthrough. You are the breakthrough. You are no longer the one looking for the door. You are the key. You are the gatekeeper of your experience. And you've chosen to open the gate wide to prosperity. Others may say, be realistic, but they don't understand the nature of reality. Reality is not fixed. It bends to belief. It reshapes itself in response to your self-concept. If you continue to accept only what others have deemed possible, you will live in their limitations. But if you dare to define yourself from the inside out, then the world becomes a canvas, and you become the artist. You paint with assumptions. You draw with imagination. You color with emotion. And what you feel as real becomes your life. So you practice the feeling of having, not once, not twice, but again and again until it lives in your bones, until it's second nature, until waking up rich in spirit is as normal to you as breathing. This is how the new self is born. This is how the millionaire identity becomes permanent, not by effort, but by repetition, not by force, but by surrendering to the truth that it's already yours. You speak differently. You listen differently. You respond to situations with a quiet power. You're not easily shaken, because your identity is no longer attached to the temporary. You live from a place deeper than the surface. You live from awareness, and that awareness gives you peace that cannot be disturbed. Even when others around you still speak the language of lack, you remain centered. Even when they measure success by struggle, you smile inwardly, because you know a better way. You don't need to convince them. You simply show them through the fruit of your state. You become the living evidence, the walking proof, the one who inspires others not through preaching, but by being. This way of being becomes your default. You don't have to think about it anymore. You are it. The questions that once plagued you fade. The doubts that used to haunt you vanish. The resistance you once felt dissolves. Not because the world got easier, but because you got clearer. Because you stopped asking for permission to be great. Because you remembered who you were before the world told you to settle. Now you walk through life with a quiet certainty. You know where you're going, because you've already arrived in consciousness. You don't need to see it to believe it. You believe it, and therefore you see it. This is the inversion of ordinary thinking. This is the way of power. This is the secret that separates the dreamers from the manifestors. This power becomes your constant companion. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It does not need applause. It simply is. A subtle force beneath your every move. A deep calm that radiates through your being. Others feel it even when they can't name it. They sense something has shifted. They recognize that you're no longer seeking. You've already found. You've already become. And because you carry yourself in this manner, life responds accordingly. The external begins to mirror the internal in more vivid ways. Unexpected checks arrive. Opportunities surface without effort, chance encounters lead to breakthroughs. But none of this surprises you anymore. You welcome it with a knowing smile because you expected it. You rehearsed it in the silence of your mind. You walked in it before it appeared. It was already true in you long before the world confirmed it. You no longer worry about the outcome, because you know the outcome is inevitable. Your only job is to maintain the state, not obsess over timing, not stress about appearances. Just stay in the feeling, stay in the knowing, persist in the assumption. You don't chase anymore. You attract, you magnetize, you draw things to you by being rather than by doing. And the doing you engage in now comes from alignment, not fear, from inspiration, not desperation, from clarity, not confusion. You understand now that wealth was never about numbers. It was never about the bank account. It was never about the house or the car or the title. It was about identity, about consciousness, about becoming the person who naturally lives in those realities. And once you step into that identity, the numbers follow, the assets follow, the lifestyle follows. It's all a result, never the cause. You are the cause. Your state is the cause. Your self-concept is the root of it all. So you guard your state with care. You protect your inner conversations. You are vigilant with your focus. You don't let random thoughts run wild anymore. You don't entertain doubt as a casual visitor. You recognize every thought as a seed, every emotion as water, and every assumption as a blueprint. And because you know the creative power you hold, you only allow the thoughts that align with your chosen reality to remain. Not because you're rigid, but because you're wise, because you understand the law. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Not because the world changes, but because your inner dominion expands. You find yourself walking lighter, smiling more, feeling freer. You realize that nothing outside of you ever truly controlled you. It was always your reaction, your perception, your belief. And now you no longer react. You respond. You no longer wait. You assume. You no longer wish. You live it now. It's a quiet revolution within, a transformation that needs no announcement, a shift that makes you unstoppable. Not because you are louder, but because you are clearer. You no longer chase validation. You validate yourself. You no longer fear judgment. You are grounded in your own truth. You no longer wait for success. You wake up each day already, living it in consciousness. And that consciousness carves paths the world can't help but follow. If ever you feel yourself slipping back into the old self, you gently return. You remind yourself, that's not me anymore. You shift again. You remember again. You dwell in the end again. Because now you understand that every moment is an invitation to return to the millionaire version of you. Not someday, not when the conditions are perfect, but now, always now. You begin to live with deliberate joy. You eat with gratitude. You walk with purpose. You rest without guilt. You make space for beauty, for silence, for richness in every form. You feel supported not by things but by truth. You begin to bless the world around you, not because you seek reward, but because blessing has become your nature. And the more you bless, the more blessed you feel. This is the cycle you enter, a loop of abundance, a spiral of expansion. Each day you rise more into yourself. Each night you fall asleep more aligned. And as you do this consistently, the world bends not just once, but again and again to match your inner evolution. Because you no longer think like the old self. You no longer behave like the old self. You no longer feel like the old self. You've stepped into a new timeline, a new identity, a new vibration, and everything must recalibrate. You are no longer in waiting. You are no longer in search. You are no longer rehearsing lack. You are now the embodiment of wealth, the full expression of abundance, the quiet force of prosperity in motion. And this is not something you visit. It is who you are. It's the place from which you now operate, create, speak, live and breathe.
You begin to realize that the true richness is in your awareness. It's in the way you perceive the world and your place within it. You no longer look at things and wonder if you'll ever have them. Instead, you see them as reflections of the inner wealth already present in you. You know that whatever resonates with your consciousness must, by law, appear in your experience. You feel a quiet satisfaction that no external condition can grant you, because you've touched the root, the source, and the source is within. Your conversations with others change subtly. You speak less about problems and more about possibilities. You don't entertain idle complaints or dramatize circumstances, not because you're pretending they don't exist, but because you've grown beyond identifying with them. You know now that what you focus on, you feed. So you choose to focus on the desired outcome, the fulfilled vision, the already completed goal. You speak about where you're going, not where you've been. You speak as one who already knows how the story ends. People notice. They begin to treat you differently, not because you asked them to, but because your self-concept demands a new reflection. Opportunities arise that match your new frequency. Conversations become richer. Ideas flow with ease. Money begins to show up in places you never expected. But most importantly, your internal experience is steady, empowered, and unshakable. You are no longer a beggar for abundance. You are its embodiment. The way you move through life becomes a statement, a declaration of identity. You're no longer trying to become the millionaire version of you, you are being it. And in being you manifest. In being you receive. In being you attract all that belongs to that state. Not because you are lucky, not because you worked harder, but because you finally aligned with the truth that had been waiting for your recognition all along. Still, you don't make noise about it. You don't broadcast your inner transformation with fanfare. There is no need. You let your life speak. You let your energy speak. You let your results speak. The world begins to mirror your internal assumptions so accurately that there is no longer any doubt left, within or without. Your life becomes a mirror of your imagination. Your bank account becomes a mirror of your beliefs. Your relationships become a mirror of your self-love. All of it flowing from one shift. The decision to act now as the millionaire version of you. It's not over. It's only just beginning. Because this version of you will continue to evolve. You are not static. You are not fixed. You are infinite in potential, and each time you expand, the universe expands with you. There are higher levels still, greater joys, bigger visions, deeper truths, and the same principle will carry you forward. Act now as the version of yourself that already lives there. Assume the feeling. Well, in the end, feel it real. The riches you manifest are simply reflections of the richness you have allowed yourself to embody. They are echoes of your own inner radiance. And as that radiance grows, the world cannot help but reflect it more clearly, more fully, more gloriously. You are not chasing dreams anymore. You are walking through them. You are living them. Because you understood the key. You don't wait to become, you decide and be. There is no effort in this being, no struggle, no striving, no pleading with life to give you what you think you lack. That version of existence has collapsed behind you. What remains is ease, flow, certainty. You realize now that wealth is not something to be earned through exhaustion, but something to be expressed through identity. And the more you allow this truth to settle within you, the more naturally the outer reflects your inner dominion. This new self you've chosen to live from does not doubt their worth. They do not ask whether they deserve abundance. They know they do because they are abundance. They've stopped trying to measure their value through productivity. They understand now that their beingness is the foundation of everything they attract. So they move with elegance, not urgency. They speak with intention, not anxiety. They allow rather than force. Your connection to this millionaire version of yourself grows deeper every day. You begin to trust your inner guidance more than the noise of the world. You no longer wait for signs to believe, you believe and then the signs come. You walk into every room like it was made for you, not because of ego, but because you've dropped the illusion of lack. You recognize yourself as the source, the power, the creator of your experience, and in that recognition all hesitation vanishes. As this identity becomes your new default, you find joy in the simplicity of things. You don't chase grand gestures or loud displays of success. You've realized that real wealth is quiet, real power whispers, real success feels like peace. So you savor the small moments, a deep breath, a loving conversation, the clarity of mind that was once so elusive. You celebrate progress without the need for perfection. You feel full even before the world can mirror that fullness. Even your challenges take on a new meaning. They are no longer setbacks. They are signals. They reveal where you've drifted from your state. They help you return. They guide you back into alignment. You face them with grace because you know they are simply mirrors showing you what needs to be released, what needs to be claimed, what part of the old self is ready to dissolve. You do not fear contrast. You use it. You continue to imagine not out of desperation but out of joy. You do not imagine to escape. You imagine to express, because your imagination has become your inner home, and from this home all things are born. You speak your desires as facts. You affirm your wealth not to convince yourself but because it's your truth. You live your vision before it manifests, because you know the vision is the blueprint, the seed, the unseen reality already forming in the background. You trust the invisible more than the visible. You trust the internal more than the external. And because of this trust you are free. Free from timelines, from pressure, from the need to explain yourself. You don't need to show proof to anyone, because your inner proof is complete. You feel the wealth, you embody the wealth, and that embodiment is magnetic. It draws all that matches it into your orbit without effort. You begin to live in a state of continuous gratitude, not just for what has arrived but for what already exists in consciousness. You give thanks for the unseen as though it were seen, because to you it is. You've transcended the old way of waiting to celebrate. Now celebration is your state. You wake up thankful, not because something happened but because you are the happening. You are the dream already fulfilled. And in that gratitude you multiply the blessings tenfold. You don't measure your success by how fast the outer world changes. You measure it by how often you return to the feeling of having, of being, of knowing. You value your emotional state above all, because you understand it's the engine of creation. When you feel rich, you act rich. When you act rich, you receive richly. And what once took months or years now comes in weeks or days, not because time sped up, but because resistance dissolved. Your inner world cleared the way. The people around you may not always understand what's happening. They may call it coincidence, luck, or chance. But you know that everything arriving is a direct response to the assumption you have chosen and embodied. You've written the script, you've taken the stage, and now the props, the actors, the lights, they all appear in perfect sequence. Because the play was rehearsed within long before it showed up without. You realize that you no longer fear setbacks, losses, or delays. You don't interpret them the way you used to. You see every moment as neutral until you assign it meaning. And you choose to assign it in your favor. Even the delays are gifts. Even the pauses are realignments. Even the no is often a redirection to a greater yes, because you trust the unseen order. You trust the deeper intelligence that governs your path. You trust your state, and you know that your state cannot lie. This kind of living becomes effortless. The weight you used to carry, comparison, doubt, fear of rejection, it no longer finds a place in your new self. That self simply doesn't resonate with low frequencies anymore. You don't need to try to stay in alignment. It's natural to you now. It's not something you do. It's who you are. And because it's who you are, it flows without struggle. The same way the sun doesn't strain to shine, you do not strain to manifest. You simply allow. You notice your preferences sharpening. You no longer say yes to things that pull you out of state. You no longer tolerate conversations or environments that contradict your vision. Not because you judge them, but because you've become so clear about who you are and where you're going, that anything misaligned simply fades away. You're no longer distracted by noise. You're tuned into the frequency of abundance, and you let it guide everything. You begin to understand why most people stay stuck. They continue to identify with the version of themselves that is trying to change, trying to succeed, trying to manifest. But trying implies effort born of doubt. You have left trying behind. You now identify with being, with knowing, with acting from a state of wholeness. You don't want the dream. You are the dream in motion. You don't look to the future, you live the end, and that end writes your present. So now let it be clear, you are no longer waiting, wishing, or wondering. You are choosing. You are stepping. You are being. You are no longer the version of you that looks at wealth as something outside, something far away, something only for a chosen few. You are the one who knows that wealth is a state of consciousness, and you have entered that state. You have embodied it. You have made it your home. The world cannot deny the one who assumes their dream is already done. Life cannot help but yield to the one who walks as if it is so. And you now are that person. You feel the power in your silence, the certainty in your steps, the command in your calm. You are not becoming the millionaire version of yourself. You are it now. Not someday, not when, but now. Hold this state. Live from it. Think from it. Speak from it. And persist in it, no matter what the world seems to show. Because the world is not the authority. You are. The outer follows the inner. The mirror reflects the image, and the image you hold is one of wealth, power, peace, and limitless potential. So walk boldly, assume fully, live richly. Let every breath affirm, it is done. For when you act now as the millionaire version of you, the universe rearranges itself, not slowly, not maybe, but certainly, to reflect the self you have already chosen to be.